Wake the fuck up, Democrats. You are not living in a world where you get to pick some perfect choir boy for your candidacy. People are imperfect. People are on Roblox when they're 10 right now. What are we going to do in 10 years? Look at somebody's Roblox chat and find they said terrible shit on fucking, I don't know, wore some first-person shooter on Sony PlayStation? We're online. We're in texts. And we all have shit in there that could be disqualifying under the rules that existed 20 years ago. Stop throwing those rules in my face and get used to the new rules and just fucking find a better candidate or swallow hard.
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Before You Speak podcast. I'm your host, Derek Peterson, just processing the fire hose of my news feed with this guy over there.
Do I need to move closer?
Yes. Just get your nose right in that camera.
I am Elwin, and the fire hose of my news feed is delightfully filled with the booze of Knicks fans thundering down around Donald Trump last night at Madison Square Garden.
You know, conveniently not shown on television, but very conveniently showing up in like from every angle possible all over the internet elsewhere. So,
and conveniently buried during the national anthem. I fucking love that somebody had to sit there and make the decision like, oh, he's really going to get booed. We don't want that. Let's show him and during the national anthem because maybe people won't boo. Someone had to constantly, there was like a meeting probably about that and fucking
of
memos
course.
and shit. He's really going to get hard. Let's
and every person in the world was at that game. Like every famous person that has any connection to New York was like all over that game yesterday, including my old boss, Irving Azoff, was sitting underneath the basket there. So, you know, he has courtside Lakers tickets, but I was surprised to see him over there for the Knicks. Like, come on, bro, what are you doing? You know, I thought you were Lakers, whatever.
I think New York's the biggest basketball town in the world.
I hate it. I can't stand Jim Dolan.
Jim Dolan's a terrible person.
Yeah, I will never root for the Knicks for that reason. But the series has been great. Jalen Brunson is that dude can ball. When we see guys that are that size, it reminds me the last time I saw somebody that size that was this good was Steph Curry. And it's just rare because the amount of skill and thought it takes to elevate and get through traffic at that size is just a different level of commitment to the game. You know, like Wemby's committed to the game, but he's also like athletic specimen. Same with LeBron James. Like it's not for a lack of commitment, but when you have a guy like Jalen Brunson, the amount of work you have to do is significantly more to be at that level. And it's probably the most impressive thing I've seen in these playoffs. So it's been fun to watch. And now I hope the Spurs win in 7. So
I'll tell you, you know, I spent first 41 years of my life in New York. And I love sports. I love sports that went on before I was alive. I love sports during the time I was alive. And I can tell you with complete confidence that if the Knicks win this, Jalen Brunson is now the basketball face on New York Mount Rushmore sports heroes. The only reason he's not there yet is because they don't have a title. So you have to give it to like Walt Frazier or Willis Reed. But he's right there. He's right there with Mark Messier, with whoever you want to pick from the Yankees in baseball would be a Yankee.
Yeah, every one of
you know.
Eli Manning, who was also
I had this conversation. I wouldn't put Eli Manning up there because I think you got to go with LT or Joe Namath. But you know, the world is a better place because Eli Manning is alive to roast Tom Brady. Like we're all better off because Eli Manning beat Tom Brady twice in the Super Bowl and we'll never let him forget it. So
it is, with like 8-8 teams too. Like those Giants team going into the playoffs were like not expected to get as far as they just got on a heater at the end of the year and rolled through the playoffs, and then dude, some of those catches are just unbelievable too.
Oh, yeah,
like it's a damn miracle. So Like that's the best. Like you see, like some titles are won with like an amazing quarterback. Other titles are won with like just incredible defense. New York's titles were won with just they were miracles, like literally miracles. So
I mean, certainly the helmet catch, right? Like it's
yes,
a miracle that he got out from that sack. It's a miracle that the guy caught it, that Tyree caught it. And you hear the ref talk and the Patriots, and they're like, we were looking at the ref, like, blow the fucking whistle. And the ref was like, yeah, no, I was like inhaling to exhale through the whistle. Like I was milliseconds away from blowing that play dead. And instead it's like one of the most famous catches in NFL history and ruins Tom Brady's perfect season and decades of, people handing Tom Brady jerseys signed by Eli Manning just to watch him get really mad.
it's so great. It's so great. Well, let's jump into the news. I think I would like to start with, the Epstein files aren't getting talked about enough. They've kind of fallen out of the news. And then just this week, I saw an interview with Ivanka Trump, which, dude, the lack of just character around like talking about buying your own island and just in a way that is just like I don't know, like look at what I'm doing this because it's like this artistic expression and we want to try something different and challenge myself. And I'm like, that it is just you couldn't be more removed from working class people than like that conversation was just so cringe. Then just the like since Epstein is gone, there's all these connections to Jared Kushner being basically groomed as the guy that's going to basically take over what the Epstein role was. Liaison between who knows, Middle East, US, orchestrating all of these deals and so on. And then the dude goes and buys an island. I'm like, dude, somebody needs to check this island when they build a house. If there are any trap doors or like large shipments of sulfuric acid to that island, we need to like call
Wait,
this
you
early.
you don't know about this island. You don't know what this island is.
No.
Oh, okay, let's have some fun. So this is an island off of the coast of Albania that was like built out in World War II as just a giant island wide bunker. There's miles of tunnels underneath this island. There's a Navy port on this island, right? This island is protected like no other island on the planet is protected. This island is protected like fucking Hamas protects themselves in Gaza, right? This is not an accident. This isn't an art project. This is Peter Thiel going, hey, by the way, I kind of feel like this whole human experiment is about to crash down around us. Think you can buy that fucking island in Albania and sell some apartments to your really, 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 really rich friends? And oh, alongside those apartments happen to be bomb-proof, nuclear bomb-proof tunnels that we can all hide out in when you get bored of fighting in Iran and just to decide to drop a couple nukes somewhere. No, that's like the trapdoors. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, this is not a vanity project. This is way worse than that.
My God. Yeah, that makes it way worse. Dude, I'm about to give up hope on humanity. I'm like, I just can't. I don't understand how people cannot see right through all of this shit. It's like I've been like the more and more you see what's happening too, like so I was listening to somebody talk the other day about the ballroom and how the ballroom being built and the bunker underneath it. And one of the reasons there's this huge push for it is that there is a potential scenario where Trump refuses to leave office and hides out there and has an impenetrable kind of like situation set up where he doesn't actually have to leave, and that there is the reason that they're building it is for that purpose and the designs and plans for it are basically set up that if you are actually like inside the bunker, it's impossible to get to without, certain situations. And I was like, man, uh, you know, I'm trying not to go down the conspiracy uh theory hole too much, but like this shit is like, are you
Yeah, I mean, let Trump rot in the bunker if he doesn't want to leave the ground to the White House, right? Like legally, him being in the bunker doesn't make him still president. But I'm not full tinfoil hat on this Albanian island, but the the story that's being written can certainly read as follows. The son-in-law and daughter of the world's most powerful man in charge of the world's largest nuclear arsenal and arsenal of bombs, a man who is 80 years old and quite clearly demented and without his faculties, a man who is obsessed with bunkers and his own security, a son-in-law who is deeply in bed with all of the Middle Eastern moneyed powers, who handles their money, who runs money for them, who wants to remake that whole area of the world into Gaza land, into just a giant real estate bonanza, buy a place, and all of these people give zero shits about humanity. Like they don't care
None.
about people at all. And this gives them the ability to launch wholesale warfare and be insulated, physically insulated from it, so that they can come out from their bunker and say, guess what we have? We have boatloads of money and we're still alive with boatloads of money. You want to rebuild all the shit that we just blew up? Take our money. We've got the money. Contractors line up for the money, right? Like that that's one way to choose our own adventure on this Albanian island story. And yeah, it's just too feasible to discount entirely. I mean, Peter Thiel has already left the country to like the
Yeah.
wilds of Argentina, right? Or like
Yeah.
the farthest reaches of South America because he sees it. You just have to listen to him talk. He sees like his future, the future he sees is one that involves the downfall of humanity. He believes it's
Yeah.
coming, and either he'll be the instrument of it or not, but he believes it's coming, and he certainly invested heavily in its coming, and he's getting the fuck out. And the Kushners and Trumps are buying a fucking bunker laden World War II island with an army base and a naval seaport that can handle submarines, by the way. They're getting ready to get the hell out. Like, and we're just sitting here like,
We're sitting here podcasting like we're about to change the world, and we are just going to get laughed at one day for it. But, the only place I actually ever care to see any of these people is like,
prison.
well, no, I think worse. I think if this entire Epstein class, if we ever actually get a hold of all these documents, I think we need to take everybody out of Alligator Alcatraz and put all of the Epstein class inside of it. I think that they should have to endure the shit that they're putting innocent people through, all of that. Like, I would let, dude, I would pay money to have, like, a lot of money to have a camera in Alligator Alcatraz watching like those dudes just rot. It's awful, man. It's they're doing this shit to everybody else and laughing their way to the bank as a result of it, and I'm just
We'll
trying
get
to.
we'll get to Alligator Alcatraz, but there's nobody there, right? Like they're ready to close it down.
Are they?
Yeah,
Is it that really got shut down?
yeah. There hasn't been anyone there for months. So just I guess whoever wanted to get paid got paid.
That's wow. It was bad enough or just not sustainable, huh? I have not seen that in my news feed, so I had no idea.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure like it was a few months ago, but there's no one there.
Okay. Well, thank God they did. Maybe they just keep moving them around so they can repurpose them. So, well, that actually leads us into our topic for the day. Today we're going to talk about for-profit prisons, and kind of what that looks like. So, I think this conversation has a number of legs, and all obviously it's an in-depth conversation because you can talk like for-profit prisons, and often we discussed this prior to, more often than not now are described as detention centers. So we're seeing more of the for-profit prison system now is actually set up with what we're doing with illegal immigrants at the moment, but it has not always been the case. And then
Well, hold on. I don't.
obviously,
It's detention centers and prisons are two different things. So it's not. it's not that we're describing these as detention centers. Detention centers, I don't know, disease lawyer brain coming out. I'm sorry. Detention centers specifically refer to people being held for deportation facilities, whereas a for-profit prison, would involve people getting sent away for crimes. It is the same companies doing this. It's just like different types of apples. One's a fucking opal gold, the other one's a pink lady.
Correct.
So yeah, disease
I
lawyer
mean,
brain. Sorry, man.
it's a fair point. I look at them the same because I'm like, yeah, people being held oftentimes against their will, which and oftentimes innocent too, or you know, not having done something that necessarily warrants the reason for being in there, which is what we're about to get into. Because, and I guess let's start with, you know, let's start with a baseline of like, what are your thoughts on for-profit prisons, and where do you see, like, is there any benefit? And then we can just start with going straight into what are the downsides? What are the shortfalls of all of these?
So yeah, I was thinking about that as I was thinking about this, and I don't think that I'm not offended by the idea of a for-profit prison. Like that construct, that concept doesn't, cause me to break out in hives or anything like that. But, it is kind of like one of these industries where the profit motive is something we need to be really, really careful about and really wary of because of what incentives it levies upon the companies that own these detention centers and prisons. But what it does is it alleviates cost and burden for the government, right?
Yeah.
It does make sense in that way. The government doesn't have to buy and maintain a building. The government doesn't have to staff and hire all these people. It shields the government probably from liability in some ways. Uh, but it just becomes simpler for the government to say, you know what, we're going to hire this company, they're going to do it. But right there is kind of like that's entering the threshold of the conceptual house of a for-profit prison. What do we do from that point on is really where this debate happens. What are our expectations? What standards do we hold these contractors to? What do we allow? What are we willing to accept as a society? Who is giving out these contracts? What impact does the size of these companies that are running these detention centers have on legislation and what laws are passed and what issues we talk about in elections? All of that stuff, you walk through that door and all of a sudden you're just smacked in the face with all of those issues, and they have to be resolved in a manner that's equitable and fair and just. And I think that's where we fail right away.
Yeah. I mean, I look at these for-profit prisons though, and it's still government money, correct? Like,
Hmm.
yeah, the government's not running it, but they're getting like all of these are getting paid, all of the contracts, and what makes these lucrative is that they're getting government contracts that have stipulations based on how many people are in there and how long they're being held, which, goes back to the Clinton administration, the when there was this, dick swinging contest with Clinton and Bush for a while of who could create more strict policies around, you know, uh, uh, crime, because that was the hot button issue at the time, in the early 90s. Everybody was trying to fix the crime problem. And then we end up in these situations where we have for-profit prisons, and we're, three strikes, and then certain, depending on what the charge is, certain things will get you potentially life in prison, and they're actually relatively minor offenses. Like I was reading about one woman that was not had no drugs in her system. She was driving and there was cocaine in the car, so she got a 30-year sentence for just having cocaine in her car, with the intent to distribute, which is, that, like, that kind of stuff. I'm like, 30 years for cocaine in your car. Like, that's insane to me. So,
Hmm.
there's some real stuff that I think we need to unpack here as far as the corruption goes. So let's, jump into the downside. So what do you see as the biggest negatives about this?
I mean, certainly the opening for corruption, right? Like you just mentioned it. You have these contracts where the government guarantees a certain uh, bed occupancy rate, right? That they're going to pay, let's say, for 75% of the beds of an occupancy rate of 75%, whether or not there's actually filled with 75%. The government in the contract says, well, we're going to pay you that much at least. So, well, now the government has an incentive to at least put someone in the bed that they're paying for. Otherwise, it's just government waste. Uh, and then you also have an incentive for the developer, the company like Geo Group or was it Core Civil? Uh, they don't want
Yeah.
75%, they want 100%. So how can they get more people in jail? Well, lobby your senator, lobby your congressperson, get stricter sentencing laws, create jail time for more different crimes, make the sentences longer. These companies want people in jail. They want more people in jail for longer. And these companies are also often staffed by former ICE agents and former Bureau of Prison officials. So you just have this incredible corruption. That's thing one. Like you have, and that creates in its worst possible form what's happened in Pennsylvania in like 2009, where two judges wound up being convicted, but they were part of a scheme. They got $2.6 million in kickbacks themselves for sending kids to juvenile detention centers for crimes as serious as making fun of the assistant principal of a school on social media. These kids are going to juvenile detention centers. Their lives are fucked up. The judges are getting financial kickbacks from the companies that own the juvenile detention centers. So the corruption, the number of ways that somebody can be corrupt in this is myriad. The second avenue is like, okay, any for-profit company has as its singular goal to make money, especially if it's
Yeah.
publicly traded, to increase profit. Uh, some companies do that by creating a better product, but I don't think having like the iPhone of prisons is actually going to make any of these companies more money. So what do? They cut costs anywhere and everywhere. They don't fix leaks. They don't do mold remediation. They hire catering contractors like in Delaney Hall where there's maggots in the food. They hire poorly trained staff. They create a fee structure that impacts everybody. They just find ways to cut every cost everywhere so that they can make more money. So that's the second way that the sort of profit motive here really gets in the way of what are these facilities supposed to do in their most basic sense without getting into like the moral justification or the moral goal of a prison system, whether it's punitive or designed to re-educate and re-enter, without getting into any of that. Their job is to house people.
Mm-hmm.
And how we do that and how these companies do that, I think we'll get to this a little later, but that's a reflection of humanity and the for profit, that profit motive it always gets in the way in industries like this and creates a shittier product. We see it with health insurance. We see it with detention centers. It's always the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah, I think, I'm going to go a little bit further back on this. So track with me for a second because, I watched the documentary 13th again today. And as I was kind of prepping for this, I think there's a thread that I think we should loop here too, because we do talk a lot about, race and culture and different things. And we try to talk very honestly about that. And I think the prison system, has a lot of racial bias, and I think we not talking about that or leaving that part of the conversation out, I don't think does this conversation as much justice. So if you go back to the 13th Amendment, which was ratified in 1865, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. So basically, slavery gets abolished. And when slavery gets abolished, they basically create a system to continue to have slaves. And
which
that
is legal.
system,
It's a carve out.
which it's a legal system way to have slaves, which we've seen. If you enjoy Idaho potatoes, there's a good chance that inmates have dug up those potatoes, and most likely they ended up on your plate somewhere for free at no expense to the companies that are using them. And there's a myriad of companies that use prison labor, right? Um, and so, we've seen the prison system be a vehicle for hate for so long. And and like the statistic is what, one in every three black males uh likely does some form of time in prison. Black males make up about 6% of the population, and of everybody incarcerated, black males make up over 40% of that population. So, and now we're starting to see the same thing. The rhetoric, we saw a little bit of reform during Black Lives Matters. They're like drug convictions, things like that started to get loosened. We started seeing politicians actually coming out and pushing against a lot of this stuff. Even Hillary Clinton came out and and Bill Clinton came out and was like, yeah, we messed this up in the 90s. Like, this was we were trying to do something that we thought was good. It ended up being used as something horrifically bad. Um, but it's really hard for me to separate the two, because like when I see what's going on with immigration right now, I just see the shift going from black people to immigrants. The rhetoric that was happening in the 90s, where all these guys are thugs and gangsters and doing all this stuff, and this is the cause of all your problems and the reason you're not safe. And now all of the reason you're not safe and the cause of all of your problems is brown people from Mexico. So, like there is a part of the prison system that is also uh, that is very racist and very racially driven, and also feels like rich white guys are the ones that are benefiting on all of this. So like there's part of this conversation I think that needs to feed into this, because a lot of the injustice that's happening doesn't really impact guys like me and you as much. It impacts unfairly black and brown people, which also tend to get worse sentences and longer sentences.
Yeah, I mean, I think in preparing for this, I tossed around the racist aspect of it, and there is a racist aspect, a racism component to this, without question. I think that anybody who wants to talk about the prison system in this country and not consider that is just simply not being honest. But one of my scars from 2020 and that time is the scar of uh, bringing racism in to explain something when the thing that's being explained is bad enough on its own, right? Because I don't when I'm talking about for-profit prisons, I don't want to argue with somebody who doesn't believe that there's a racist component to it. I don't want to give them the stats that in 1864, 99% of the prisoners in Alabama were white. In like 1875, 99% of the prisoners in Alabama were black. That there's a whole set of laws called the Black Codes that were designed to imprison newly freed black people like vagrancy, because of course they didn't have a house anymore because they weren't slaves anymore, and now being vagrant is a crime punishable by imprisonment, where, oh, by the way, you can keep slaves as long as they're in the prison system because of the exception clause of the 13th Amendment. I don't want to have that argument with someone who's too myopic to see it, because the idea of for-profit prisons in its execution is bad enough, and I want to have that conversation. The other conversation needs to be had. I feel like people just like they get it, racism. Everything's not racism. Like fucking Dr. Oz said it like yesterday. You can't be racist in Minnesota because being racist is like being called a racist is racist. I don't know what he said. It was like
Some
whatever,
dumb shit.
some dumb shit, right? But like you can't. So I agree with everything you said, and there's no question that all of it is true. I'll just take it as like pure capitalistic opportunity. These companies see an opportunity to make money by housing people who are either convicted of a crime, uh, waiting to be convicted, waiting for trial, right? Like a lot of people in jail have not been convicted. They are just simply being held on a bail that they can't afford, which is another scandal altogether, or waiting to be deported or to go through the deportation system. So, like, to me, in 2022, 2023, 2024, when Trump starts talking about mass deportations now, and he's got mass deportation sign behind him at the convention, all these groups are sitting there going, yeah, awesome. This is a product opportunity, right? We have a product of detention centers, of beds, of cages to put people in, and we can sell it to the government because they're going to have an increased supply of people to put it in. Look, I don't feel that coldly about it, but I do think that that was, you know, it's a way to bring to talk about the issue in a manner that hopefully gets people to think like, wait, are these people products? Like, are we handling this the right way? Like, look, if someone's here illegally, we can have a debate about whether or not they should be detained, whether or not they should not be detained, how they should be handled. If someone is convicted of possession of marijuana, the conversation about sentencing guidelines and three strikes is a real one that we have to have, and it's legitimate. But this is another conversation. This is, what do we do? How do we treat those people? And how do we uh, manage the process of keeping track of these people, or holding them uh, until the time that their case or their issue can be adjudicated properly?
Yeah.
And within that, do we demand honesty, or do we open the system to groups like ALEC so that they can come in and write the laws? Which is what that group, it's a legislative council, does.
Yeah, so the American Legislative Exchange Council, which was founded in 1973, is interesting because it's a mix of politicians and businessmen. And ALEC is where uh, a lot of the prison system rhetoric and the ideas of how, like, almost all of the formation of the private prison system started with ALEC and continues to go through them. And ironically, not ironically, interestingly enough, most of the people that benefit the most from the for-profit prison system also happen to be heavily involved in ALEC. So basically the people that are making the rules are siphoning off the top.
Yeah, and to illustrate kind of why ALEC is bad, uh, we live under the illusion, people like you and I, people like almost everybody in this country, that we vote for a city council or state representatives or federal representatives, and that those state representatives go and they talk to the members of their caucus and their constituents, and they come up with an idea, or they had an idea. That's why we voted for them, because we like that idea. And they write a law. And of course, they look at some of the other laws that were passed in other states. They look for proof of concept. They look for what worked. But then they put pen to paper and they start writing. Well, if you look at the laws that ALEC has passed in different states, you'll have, like, they're literally word for word the same, right?
Yep.
So are we really voting for that? Like, I don't think so. Like, I know things work, like everything new is built off of something old. I get it. But when you have one lobbying group that has all the same people that's just running from state to state, finding the same, like rural white guy representative who ran on a farm bill or an anti-crime bill, and you're saying, hey, sponsor this bill, and it's exactly the same in every single state, well, something's wrong, because the problem is not the same in every state. The problem of marijuana possession in rural Nebraska is very different than the problem of marijuana possession in Los Angeles County, and they shouldn't be solved the same way. They shouldn't be handled the same way. I don't know which one is worse or better. I have no opinion on that. I don't know shit about rural Nebraska. Uh, but, like, is possession of marijuana in downtown LA like a jailable offense? If it is, everybody's going to jail. Well, before
Yes,
that it
everybody.
was legal. So organizations like ALEC, they homogenize these laws into a way that makes it very, very clear that it's not for our benefit. It's for the benefit of some company or some person who stands to benefit from the specific language that's being repeated in state after state. Not to mention the fact that like Geo Group, they have prisons in multiple states. Makes it nice and easy for them if the language is exactly the same. And we don't fucking know. Like people
Yeah,
in Texas might get really mad if they knew that they had the same marijuana law as Massachusetts or the some same criminal law as Massachusetts. We're not some blue state liberal hippie place. Make
yeah,
this worse.
yeah.
So it removes the the veil of representation, and it is not on our behalf. It's on behalf of the people, the politicians and business people, like you mentioned, who make up the group. We're nowhere near that room.
Yeah. And it's also important to note that that room is full of people that were also that are like a lot of the people that back Alec are the same people that pushed Citizens United through. These are people that have basically tried to continue are continually trying to take off the guardrails around funding elections and able to influence politics, because almost all of these, if there's one thing all of these people know, it's that being government adjacent and getting government contracts is the most lucrative business you can be in the United States. And it's just for-profit prisons, Lockheed Martin, and defense contracts, research for new drugs, if you can, depending on what kind of contracts you can get, and what your pitch is for the research. It's rampant all over the place, and it's and we're constantly fed the story, which is the same story we were being fed about the prison system, is that these people are bad and scary, and we need to protect ourselves from them. And they've developed the art form of convincing us that we're all. There's a bunch of scary monsters out there, and they have the solution, and the solution is just to buy into whatever thing that is going to make them more money. So
Yeah, the
it's a relatively simple process once you actually deconstruct it all.
Yeah, it's exactly right. It is simple. These are lobbying groups funded by, or these are lobbyists that are on Capitol Hill, paid by the companies that want to build these detention facilities. Uh, and it's the same as an oil and gas lobbyist. It's the same as a defense lobbyist. It's the same as any, industry-backed, well-heeled lobbying group, except we're not lobbying we're not legislating oil fields, and we're not legislating airplanes. We're legislating what we do when we remove somebody's freedom, and feel like that deserves some scrutiny.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about like some of the specifics in regards to how some of these companies make money on the prison system. So like there's a bunch of ridiculous fees when it comes to like uh how these prison systems deal with the people that are incarcerated. So break some of that down for us.
Yeah, so these companies, they want to make money however they can. So of course they get a government contract to build the facility or to rent the facility, and then they get a government contract that has occupancy rates and all that stuff. But the other way that they can make money is on the uh, the people who are imprisoned themselves. So, and off of their families. So first of all, they work, but they get paid like $1 a day, right? Okay, fine. I'm not going to be like super duper pissed off about that. Uh, but when their family wants to send money into their commissary account, which they need to do because things in the commissary cost like 4 times what they cost to the public,
Yeah.
they have to pay a fee, and in some instances that fee is 45%. The prison company takes 45% of the money that family is putting in to their family member's account. Uh, Phone calls have gotten better. Phone calls used to run up to hundreds of dollars for a 5 or 10 minute phone call, which the family of the inmate has to pay, not the inmate. Okay. Now it can be up to, I think, $1 a minute. I think it's been capped by federal law, but still $1 a minute for a phone call. I mean, when I was 23, sure, and cell phones were new, but phone calls are free now.
Yeah.
You know, uh, they charge, of course, the health insurance. They have to buy their own health insurance. And of course, it's terrible health insurance and it's run by groups that are in bed with those groups. In Florida, they charge a bed fee. They basically charge a nightly fee for every night you're in there to the inmate. And that fee accumulates. It's bonkers. I mean, that we pay that for a hotel,
Yeah.
right? Uh, and what in a lot of cases they do, and certainly in Florida they do that. Florida is particularly egregious. Because a few years ago they passed a constitutional amendment that allowed for the rights of convicted felons to vote to be restored upon release from when their sentence was over. That's constitutional amendment. I think it passed 60-40, so it was pretty popular. Uh, well, what the Florida state legislature do? They immediately passed a law that said that right to vote being restored was also contingent upon paying back any fines or fees levied as a result of your crime and or imprisonment. So one guy got out of jail in Florida and he's got a $55,000 fee that he has to pay. And that is his hotel. That's his bed fee. Like, I don't know how to describe it. It's $50 for a hotel is like a shitty hotel, but I've stayed in a $50 hotel and I chose to pay it because I needed a place to sleep. Right? Like the idea to me when I read this that a state would charge someone in prison for the bed, like that, it's bonkers, right? Like,
It's it's
yeah,
it's fucking terrible. It reminds me similarly of like how modern day slavery works overseas. When I did a missions trip to Kenya when I was in my younger years, and we had to go through Dubai. And while we were going through, I had to read a bunch about it just to make sure that we were safe because we wanted to like walk around for a day. Um, and one of the things that came up as I was kind of doing some research on that was the people there was a New York Times article, like a full op-ed or something, that basically exposed that uh Dubai was built basically on slave labor. They would go into poorer countries, they would convince people to come and work, and then in coming to work, they would end up taking their passports, but they would offer them lodging and food. But they would charge them such an egregious amount for the lodging and food, which was awful, that the work they were doing wasn't paying for it. So they were consistently going in debt and owing more. And then the people that had collected their passports wouldn't give them back because they're like, you owe me money now. So I'm feeding you and housing you, and your work is not paying for it. So it's like basically this like loop of slavery. And it really, like, we're doing something very similar here, just maybe slightly better is what it feels like, which is just
is it?
completely fucked up.
Is it?
No.
I don't know. I mean, like in Arizona, they charge I forgot about this one. In Arizona, a family that wants to visit a family member in prison, has to pay $25 entrance fee. And of course, these families are not blue collar,
Yeah.
are not white collar, right?
Yeah.
These are people who are barely scraping by to begin with. But like, so the comparison that you just made is an interesting one because I don't know. To me, this is a bit of a litmus test of a society, right? Like, I'm under no illusions. I'm not about to make the argument that crime shouldn't be punished or that people shouldn't be put in jail, uh, or that people aren't responsible for their actions. There's a million other
Yeah.
problems with the criminal justice system that we're not talking about. But, if you commit a crime and the sentence for that crime is punishable by jail time and the judge sentences you to jail, like, all right, you're in jail. You done fucked up pretty bad if you're in jail. Okay. I don't have a lot of sympathy for the fact that you wound up there. In some cases I do, but by and large, like, let's put that to the side. But now what? Right? Like, you're still human
Yeah.
to me. You still have you should still have the right to speak to your children, the right to speak to your spouse or your parents. You should still have the right to eat a meal that is, not infested with maggots. It's not a Michelin starred restaurant. I I'm under no illusions about that. But it should be a meal that has some protein and has some starchy carbs and some vegetables. right? We should be treating people like that. We should be treating people in a manner. If they need medication, they can get their medication. If they need to see a doctor, they see a doctor. Is it the dean of Harvard Medical School? No, but it's a competent medical professional who is going to take care of the person with humanity. I don't think that that's too high of a bar to demand out of our prison system. And I think that what happens too often, and the space that these for-profit companies just gleefully occupy, is the space created by we as a society saying, oh, that guy got convicted of a crime, he's going to jail. He no longer exists. That person doesn't exist anymore. Off the radar. They are wiped
Yeah.
away from our conscience. And there, I'm acutely aware that there's a ton of shit that we all have to worry about every day. Uh, and I'm not asking anybody to like go out and be a prison activist. But I do think that when you think about this type of topic, it's like, how do we just treat other people?
Yeah.
Do we treat them as humans or not? And so that's the difference between like the slave labor. I don't know if it's better or worse, right? And that's how they did the World Cup in Qatar in 2022, by the way.
Yeah.
Uh, it's worse in some ways, but this is state action. This is done on our behalf, right? I don't have a say in who goes and builds the Burj Dubai. I do have a say in how prisoners in Austin, Texas, and in Texas and in the United States are treated.
Yeah.
Uh, so to me, that's a meaningful distinction. And I just feel like as a litmus test for humanity, how we treat our prisoners is a really, really good one. And it's a great one in this country because we don't rank a number one in the world in an awful lot of stuff. We rank number one in things like, gun deaths and percent of our population that's in prison.
Yep.
So, we're making a very clear statement to the rest of the world that we are completely fine throwing our people into jail. And we're making a further statement that we're completely fine not giving a shit about how they're treated. And that's what these protests at Delaney Hall in New Jersey were all about. They're about the mistreatment of humans,
Yeah.
humans who, in most cases, simply crossed a border without the right papers, right? And it's
This
not
is,
right.
yeah. And I think this is the crux of the conversation, right? Is just that, when you boil this all down, I believe in law and order. It's critical, right? If you do bad shit, you should go to jail. And there are people that have the sole purpose, and I've met some of them throughout my life, that want to hurt other people, that want to destroy things, that have zero desire to be functioning people in society. And if that is you, the prison system needs to be able to manage human beings like that. It's the only way we can have a civilized society. But on the other end of the spectrum, when when profit becomes involved and incarcerating people makes somebody else rich, we find ourselves in this place where it becomes not about the thing anymore. It's not about the bad catching bad people. It's about meeting a quota, getting numbers, like making sure. And that's where this whole system gets fucked up, because if the system was working, half of the administration would right now would be in jail. If the system
Yeah.
was working, the people that are in Delaney Hall, a good majority of them would not be there. Like, people that are actually doing things that deserve to be in prison should be there. There's no question about that. But the people that don't shouldn't be, and there should not be incentives to put people in prison to make money on it. And that's the part of it for me that I'm like, yeah. Yeah, go fuck yourself. Because the very people that are benefiting on all of this are the ones that seem to be the most crooked and probably belong in the very facilities that they are making money on putting innocent people into. So,
Yeah. I mean, I
uh,
think you're absolutely right. And the thing that I think people forget is, in my estimation, having looked up no numbers, I would guess that the vast majority of people who are in prisons in this country are in prisons for nonviolent drug offenses, or for first offenses that, definitely, not murder, right?
Yeah.
There's not that many murderers running around. Uh, and these are people that, like, look, I'm not going to say they're good people, but they are people with families, with brothers, with sisters, with mothers and fathers and kids who, have the right to see them. And even if you don't believe that, the mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters and kids, they have the right to see their brother, sister, kid, or father. And we remove that right when we just throw them away and don't pay attention to the fact that it costs, $1 a minute to make a phone call, that it costs $10 to make a 30-second video snippet on a tablet that you have access to now, that it costs $25 for your family to get to a prison that maybe they just had to drive 3 hours to get to, that they can only get to once every 2 months because they have to work. These are, it's not a defense of criminals to say that we can treat these people better.
Yeah.
The ones that are the worst are going to get treated the worst. There's no issue with that. Did you ever watch the show Oz?
Oh, it's been forever.
So great show, fairly disturbed show. But there was a guy, one of the lead guys in that was a guy, Tobias Beecher was his character's name. White guy gets thrown in this maximum security prison because he gets drunk at lunch one day and he runs over a kid. He kills the kid. It's hit and run, but he gets busted and he gets thrown in jail. That show scared the shit out of me because of that guy, because of that character, because this was just a guy who made an awful mistake and deserves to go to jail, right? But the lack of humanity that he experienced in there scarred him forever, right? And we can't control what the other inmates do to him. We can try, but we can't. It's a terrible place no matter what. But we can control the overall structure of humanity that exists around him, from the guards, from the warden, from the health staff. Like, that stuff is in our control, and we can do better. And I know we can do better because we're doing so badly right now, right? Like, to tie it back away from like fucking Tobias Beecher and all this shit. In Delaney Hall, they're getting served meals with maggots. And the response from the government is to throw the protesters under actual trucks, right? And to pepper spray senators, because people on Earth believe that people in detention centers should be served food that's free of maggots. Who's right and who's wrong there, right? Because to me, it's quite clear, right? It's the for-profit company that is wrong. And they're served maggot food because it's fucking for profit, because they can hire a caterer that's cheaper. They can bring in meals cheaper and they can go line their pockets more. It's wrong. The whole
Yep.
system is wrong.
If you care about money more than other human beings, there is a special place in hell for you, and
Yeah.
that is the crux of it. And from a Christian standpoint, that is actually accurate. So if you claim to be a Christian and your viewpoint is that these people deserve it, I have some news for you. You might open your eyes one day and be being judged for that exact thing. So let's I think it's probably a good spot to is there anything else you wanted to add in there on the end? I think it might be a good
No, I mean, I'll
space
just
to
tie it back to like, I don't think people would listen to this and like all of a sudden become prison rights activists. But I do hope that when you hear this stuff come up, you just run that question through your own moral check,
yeah.
your own morality litmus test, and say, what's the level that I demand of human treatment for others when they have no option but to rely on the state for everything, right? What is the level that I demand? And if that level is maggot food, I'm probably not friends with you.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a specific way that this stuff is communicated, and it's communicated through fear. The more, forever it was, we need to fear black people because they're dangerous, black men, and it was the rhetoric that was pushed, and that rhetoric has shifted in the last probably 10 years to immigrants are the things we should fear and the source of our problems. And the one thing I would just ask everybody is to question, like, a, is that actually true? Have you ever actually experienced that? And b, who benefits from this lie more than anybody else? And if you research the answer to that question, becomes pretty obvious, like, what the situation is there's some pretty terrible people that are making money on uh, throwing innocent people in jail and captivity because they make money on it. And not saying it's everybody. Prison systems, obviously, like, bad people need to be put in jail, and if we don't have that, we would have anarchy. So I'm not shitting on the whole system, but I am shitting on the system that makes money for some kid, stealing a candy bar or some shit like that.
Yeah,
So
don't ask me to give up my humanity because you want to make money on some bad person.
correct. Yep. So who we telling to shut the fuck up today, Owen?
So it was going to be the guy with the douchey bumper sticker in front of me on my way home today, but
You got
I've called an
you're
audible.
you're pivoting at the moment.
I'm pivoting at the moment. I'm
Is it
pivoting
is it
to
me?
no,
Oh.
I don't know how to identify this group of people, but let's call it blue sky anti-Graham Plattner Democrats. Okay. But I was going to get fucking Plattner in this episode one way or another because I'm really getting more and more angry about it the more I think about it. So Graham Plattner, we've talked about him a bunch of times before. He, he is, let's call it a flawed human. So a report came out in the New York Times last week that it did not accuse him of assaulting a woman, right? So early last week, there's some messages came out, or a story came out that before, when he first met his wife, but before they got married, he was sexting with some other women. The wife came out, spoke on his behalf. She knew about it. She was, in fact, the one who had given it to the media. I think we covered all that last week. So later in the week, the New York Times comes out with an article sourcing three women, only one of whom was named, who said that he did shit when they were in a relationship with him that uh, left them feeling, I believe the word is unsettled. Okay. Uh, the most, the one woman who put her name to it, who is a Republican operative who works in Washington, D.C. for the Heritage Foundation, who dated him, uh, said that at one point he like grabbed her and pulled her out of a cab, and at another point they were in an argument, and he uh, pushed her into a room and shut the door and said, "Don't come out until you've calmed down." And when she slept, when she went to sleep and woke up and came out of the room. So like, all right, Graham Plattner's a shitbag. He's a terrible boyfriend. All right. But he was not, and I'm not really even going to defend what he did. The thing is, though, that like, it's like there's a segment of the Democratic Party that didn't get what they wanted out of the Me Too movement. They kind of don't like how that's shifted, how the narrative has shifted from Me Too away from believe every claim ever, no matter what, no questions asked. Uh, and they kind of don't know what to do with this sort of thing. Because I can promise you that the Democratic Party as a whole, if they saw this from a Republican, they'd be all mad. Now, some of the Democrats are mad and some aren't, and that's where the fight is, right? The Democrats who are mad at the Democrats who are not mad. They're like, this is fucking terrible stuff. And the Democrats who are not mad are like, is it? Is it terrible? Is it disqualifying in 2026, in the age of Trump, in the age of Spencer Pratt, in the age of, you know, uh, religious leaders getting convicted of sexual assault kind of on a weekly basis? Is what Graham Plattner did Graham Plattner, a guy who has acknowledged that he had a drinking problem and has acknowledged PTSD and has acknowledged, being in therapy and has acknowledged being kind of a dog, is the fact that this guy did dog shit disqualifying in a fucking race for the United States Senate? Look, I wish I really wish that the Democratic establishment, that the Chuck Schumers of the world knew a year and a half ago what their base was saying. And their base was saying, stop giving me Janet Mills. Stop giving me a 78-year-old establishment Democrat who was a successful governor of Maine. I don't want that person as a senator. Okay. I don't want Susan Collins either, but I don't want Janet Mills. I want this guy. He's like me. He speaks to me. I'm not perfect. I live in Maine. I've gotten drunk and, done some shit I'm not proud of. So is he, right? He served our country and he has PTSD, and I respect that. And he's acknowledged his mistakes, and I respect that. And Graham Plattner has an honesty problem, which is real and could cost him the election. And we have the right to sort of demand honesty when we absolve past actions. We definitely have that right. And I don't love that Graham Plattner has a fucking Nazi tattoo on his chest and, cross posts white supremacists. But you know what? I have to swallow that because Chuck Schumer fucked up and couldn't find a better candidate, okay, than Janet Mills. And because giving up the Supreme Court is too big a price to pay for Graham Plattner's misgivings. And that's literally what we're talking about. We
Yep.
are talking about a third flipped seat, right? The Democrats are going to flip North Carolina. They have a shot at flipping Alaska. They should flip Michigan, but God only knows how that's going to go. They could take Ohio back. They could take Texas, but Maine is the second easiest one on that list behind North Carolina. Maine should be a slam dunk.
Yep.
Okay. The only thing that can get in the way is stupid Democratic infighting. And I know he's a fucked up candidate and I don't want to carry his water, but I don't want to live under Thomas and Alito for another fucking billion years or whoever replaces him. There's way more at stake, Democrats on blue sky, than whether or not you find this guy to be a pig. Cool. He's a pig. Cool. He's a little too comfortable with Nazi tattoos. Cool. I probably wouldn't vote for him in the primary. I probably would have voted for Janet Mills because of all that shit, because I can't put my vote on that. But I'm not going to fucking tank his campaign. Let Susan Collins win again and rubber stamp whoever fucking Trump wants. Wake the fuck up, Democrats. You are not living in a world where you get to pick some perfect choir boy for your candidacy. People are imperfect. People are on Roblox when they're 10 right now. What are we going to do in 10 years? Look at somebody's Roblox chat and find they said terrible shit on fucking, I don't know, wore some first person shooter on Sony PlayStation? We're online, we're in texts, and we all have shit in there that could be disqualifying under the rules that existed 20 years ago. Stop throwing those rules in my face and get used to the new rules and just fucking find a better candidate or swallow hard, because the fucking Republicans, they have no doubt. They have no second thought on this question. They vote for the Republican. It doesn't matter what a piece of shit he is or she is. They are going to vote for them because they understand power.
Yep.
And that's what this is about. It's no longer about character. And Thomas Jefferson wouldn't have wanted it to be about character anyway. So shut the fuck up, blue sky Dems. Stop shitting on Plattner. Call him a dog. He calls himself a dog. But get the fucking line and get the guy elected, and then find someone better in the next state. But don't fuck this up like fucked it up 6 years ago. God damn it, Democrats.
I'll fist bump that. It's funny because like one of the foundational things I teach my kids is, it's not the mistake isn't the problem. It's what you do afterwards. So it's it's either the cover up or the owning of it. And what I will say is that, the stuff that's going around about Graham Plattner, like I've been through 2 divorces, and some of the worst moments of my life were moments where I've never hit anybody in my life. That's something I learned early not to do because I'm a big guy. But I've said some of the worst shit I've ever said to people when pressed and angry, and yeah, things I'm not proud of. And the one thing I will say is, man, like when you dissect somebody's personal life like this and try to hold it against them and then use that as like a test of morality, I don't think it's accurate. And I'm not relinquishing Graham Plattner from a lot of the stuff that's come up here, because there's a lot of truth to some of the shitty things. Like, I don't have a Nazi tattoo on me, so like nor would I ever get anything that was similar to, actually, I mean, I can't really I have the devil tattooed on me right here, so uh like the symbolism behind my arm is a little different, but like I said, you can dissect somebody's life in any situation like that. So but I'm with you on that, is that, you know, fucking shut up, Democrats. Like, we are in a moment in time where infighting, we need to set that shit aside, you know.
And yeah, and what you said is exactly right. I can go back. I know right now a moment I'm thinking about where like, ooh, that was pretty bad. And I never hit or assaulted anybody either. But yeah, there are times when I was like,
I
really,
said,
really bad. And if we could create in the lab the perfect elected representative, great. But we can't. And the Democrats lose because they don't accept flaws. And the thing that drives me nuts about Plattner is the flaw that's going to take him down amongst the Democrats isn't the fucking Nazi tattoo. Like, that should be the flaw. That should be the disqualifying thing. I don't think he's a Nazi, by the way. But if any of this
no,
shit's going to be disqualifying,
if
it's got to
anybody's
be
a
the fact that he
Nazi,
wore a fucking Nazi tattoo.
yeah, it's, if anybody's a Nazi, it's the fucking guy that was encouraging the Proud Boys to grab some tiki torches and
Right.
march, right? And
Blood and
like,
soil, Jews will not become us. Those are the fucking Nazis.
yeah,
But
like,
look, cool. The reason I get fired up about the Nazi tattoo is like once we allow that, we're
yeah,
really lowering the bar. To me, that
agreed.
bar now, we're taking a red line and eliminating it. And it to me should be a more permanent red line than like a guy acting like a fucking asshole a guy who's acknowledged that he was a fucking asshole acting like a fucking asshole.
Yeah,
That's just not a red line that we should have as a party anymore.
yeah.
That's not the way the world is.
And you miss the context, right? Like, some of the worst shit I said was after arguments and stuff that happened with my ex-wives, but if you just take my side of it, it looks fucking terrible. But if you then realize, like, oh, actually, she tore my shirt and threw a bowl of spaghetti at me prior to what I said, then you're like, well, maybe there's a little bit of context you were missing prior to all of this. So yeah, like, you can get one version of a story, but trying to dissect a fight between a couple and using that against them, go fuck yourself. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to do that. And if this is the infighting we're allowing to break up, or make a decision about who we think Graham Plattner is, I'm like, yeah, I'm old enough and I've had enough relationships to realize there's two sides to every story. We've yet to hear his, but whoever is willing to
No,
slam him
he's
into the,
said it.
has he?
He gave his side. He said like I was shitty. I was a bad boyfriend.
Okay. Yeah.
The allegations about pulling her out of the cab, he vehemently denies.
Yeah.
And
But
about putting
see,
her.
that's what yeah, like, there's that kind of stuff where I'm like, yeah, like, being a shitty person and saying some terrible things, but then getting physical with these are two very different things. And people tend to lump some of the truth in with something that's not true to make it more believable. And
and that
I'm not
woman
going,
and that woman said he never assaulted me.
yeah.
She said
So,
it very clearly. She said he never assaulted me. Now,
so
look, do I feel gross being a white guy talking about that as the bar? Yeah. But she's the one who said it. Like she made
yeah,
the point to say it, not me.
correct. Well, let's, I'm getting
I
all
dragged that
boiled
out.
up here.
Sorry.
So, yeah, no,
Yeah.
you're good. What are we talking about next week?
Oh fuck, I don't know. Probably Grand Platinum.
Do a full. Should we just do a full breakdown on Plattner next week?
God damn it! This fucking guy better win.
Yes, please, God. I
Susan
actually,
Collins out of 2,000 lives.
yeah, I actually like listening to Graham Plattner talk. I think there's if he actually follows through with the things that he says, and he actually believes in and is going to govern the way he says, I think I actually think he's a public figure that I will respect, and not to say he's perfect or not going to make a mistake, but like there's what he talks, he genuinely feels like he has his constituents' heart. Like he wants a better life for the people of Maine, and that is the thing that I see him touting, and I hope that other people do too. But as far as next week goes, I mean, you want to do an episode on CrossFit? Because that's something we can...
Yeah. Sure, we can inside baseball for a week.
It's a little break from our... I mean, we can still... there's a world where we can merge some politics and CrossFit together too.
We could do like a midsummer sports episode. You've got the World Cup starting. You'll have the NBA Finals either completed or going to basically Game 7. Yep. CrossFit's doing their semifinals. You'll have the baseball season in full swing. Hockey is just about done. It's a pretty ripe sports time. We could do a midsummer sports episode.
I'm in. Well, I specifically...
I love it.
Yeah, I actually specifically would love to do an episode on CrossFit, because I think actually talking through some of the business side of that, the culture side of CrossFit, and to be honest, it's fall from grace, because I think it's steadily falling and getting worse to the point of where I think it's not going to exist anymore soon. But I think that would be a fun episode, and we both have a lot of experience to talk about it. So
let's do let's make like half of it CrossFit and half of it just fun.
Deal. Let's do it.
Cool.
Well, see y'all next week. For everybody that made it through this episode to the end. I don't even usually make it this far. So.
Yeah, I'm sweating.
See you next week.
Fuck.